In Libya, just days after reopening, the only operating airport in Tripoli has been closed. Flights have been diverted to Misrata after rocket fire was reported on Tuesday. The airport had been reopened following a UN-brokered ceasefire, ending the latest outbreak of violence between militia in Tripoli. The airport's closure follows this week's deadly attack on the National Oil Corporation's headquarters. Libyan officials suspect ISIL fighters are responsible for the ambush. In Ghana, hundreds of mourners are paying their respects to Kofi Annan. The former UN Secretary-General's body is lying in state at the Accra International Conference Centre. An official state funeral is slated for Thursday. Dignitaries from around the world are expected to attend the ceremony. The Nobel laureate died last month at the age of 80 after a brief illness. People from around the world are remembering Annan's work.
I just think he was a great world leader and a great humanitarian, and I wanted to pay my respects to him.
Kofi Annan, probably one of the foremost Ghanaians that ever lived. And on his death, I think it's just proper that we come to pay our respects. I had the privilege of attending the same secondary school with him. I had the privilege of seeing him at meetings because I was in the diplomatic service.
In my opinion, his humility and truthfulness, straight to the point, without any fear of favor. That's what we should emulate from him as his legacy to Ghana and then to the nation internationally. And so I'm appealing to the youth to take these characters that he is leaving behind as a guide for their future activities.
It's what he represents. He represents diplomacy in its finest form. He was always a very thoughtful and calm voice in very turbulent times. So during the Iraq War, for example, or the lead up to the war, as the big powers lined up to go to war, he really forcefully stood his ground against a lot of powerful countries, and he managed to appeal to reason and to logic and to peace. In Kenya, where I've had the good fortune to go to a few times, when the elections in 2007 and 8 turned violent, they needed somebody of Kofi Annan's stature to come and really get the parties back to talking and really settle that conflict peacefully. So he's always been, a very thoughtful, peaceful, calm voice.
Well, let's go to Ghana's capital, Accra, now, where the former UN chief is lying in state. CGTN's Robert Nagila is there for us. Robert, it's less than 24 hours now before Kofi Annan is laid to rest. Give us some insight into what's happening where you are.
Well, thank you very much, Karen. At this particular moment, we've got ministers, members of parliament, family members and VIPs, local VIPs really, coming into the Accra International Conference Centre to pay their final respects. It's quite colourful. A lot of people that we've spoken to here say that this is a celebration of a man that is regarded as one of the most famous sons here in Ghana. There's still a lot of debate as to how they will honor him. On Tuesday, we had members of the public allowed to come in to pay their last respects. And a lot of people were full of smiles, really, saying that, look, he had lived a full life, and knowing Kofi Annan, he would want us to celebrate his life and not to cry over his death. So that is the feeling that we're experiencing here. You can hear the traditional drums behind me. You also have some local traditional leaders from the Ashanti region who are also represented here, paying their last respects. Karen?
And Robert, the diplomat is revered by many around the world for his humanitarian work. What moments are his friends, family and other Ghanaians recalling?
Karen, we've been speaking to a lot of people throughout the week, and the one thing everybody seems to talk about is his illustrious diplomatic career spanning decades. and the successes that he had during that time. Some also talk about some of the things that he was not able to accomplish during his diplomatic career and the reasons for that. But we also have some family members, especially his cousin, who was talking to me, giving me another side of Kofi Annan that we were not privy to on TV, that he had a sense of humor, which didn't always come out because of his role within the international community, within diplomatic circles as well. But he says that he had a really good sense of humor. I myself recall very vividly having covered the Kenya's post-election violence when he came over in 2008, and it was predominantly because of Kofi Annan that the two sides, that is the government and the opposition, were able to come together and talk. And one of the things that he said at that time was that he was not leaving the country until they had reached some sort of resolution to that crisis, and he kept to that word. So a lot of people here are really remembering his illustrious career as a diplomat, as an individual, those who knew him, family members and so on, and some of the work he did with his foundation as well. Karen?
And the death of Kofi Annan is almost reminiscent of when Nelson Mandela passed on 5 years ago. Certainly the world will descend on Accra on Thursday. Can you tell us about some of the dignitaries expected to attend the funeral?
Absolutely. Well, topping that list, of course, you've got the Ghanaian president, the host, who will be here attending the funeral and inviting all these other leaders and representatives from different countries and organizations. You have the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who will be here. We expect him to arrive at some point this afternoon or late in the evening. You also have Zimbabwe's president, who's going to be here, Mnangagwa. He will be here. We expect him to arrive today. Then you have the presidents of Niger, Guinea, who are also coming here. Incidentally, Kenya will be represented by opposition leader Raila Odinga. And then you have Alassane Ouattara from Ivory Coast, who will be here. Nigeria will also be represented. And then you also have a host of other representatives and leaders from Europe and the US who will also come. Those who knew him personally, those who had worked with him in different capacities, who are also going to be here. And of course, let's not forget the Ghanaian people, who, as I said before, regard him as one of their most famous sons, who will be coming to bid farewell to Kofi Annan. Now, already there's a debate ongoing in the country as to how to honor him. I spoke to the Ghanaian Deputy Information Minister, and he says that that debate will probably pick up in the coming days after the funeral. How exactly this country is going to honor their son, as he put it, in the coming days, months ahead, and years as well. Some people are calling for a national holiday in his honor, but it's not been decided yet as to what exactly the government will do to honor him.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much for that. That was CGTN's Robert Nagila there for us in Ghana's capital, Accra, following the ceremony and tomorrow's funeral of Kofi Annan.